Hey guys, this is GamerCal, not quite playing the Pokemon trading card game stuff today because unfortunately we did do some stuff on Sunday. The footage is not really usable. Nothing wrong with the actual footage itself, but the draft itself did not work. So, long story short, in a bid to fix the randomness issues that we had last time round, where picking up packs by, numpadding them and whatnot, had some seeding issues. Peppa got that fixed, but unfortunately there was just an argument variable error somewhere. I think it was off by 1 in a couple of spots, and so a couple of the cards in the set were just flat out not available at all rarities. So Psyduck and Mysterious Fossil in the commons, Arbok and Kingler in the uncommons, I believe it was Haunter and Muck from the rares, and then Articuno, and I forget the other one that was not available. Might have been the Zapdos actually. Probably Zapdos because that was the last one in there. Anyway, around it, there are a few cards that we just were physically unable to pull and kind of needed. So, it's not an accurate draft if not all the cards in the set are available. So we've scrapped that. We're going to be redoing it this weekend. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of a delay in the actual parts. So what I wanted to do instead, especially because we actually have a couple of new people in here too, which I'll go into, I wanted to show what we tested at the weekend. Because we did still do the draft, and there's a few bits here to look at. So I wanted to kind of go into that and just very briefly sort of go over the archetypes that we played. Not necessarily going to be sticking with these, obviously. We have a different draft entirely to go through, so we may not even get all of the cards here. But most of them we already have. Fossil itself is kind of it's not a do-nothing set, not by any means, but it's a bit lower impact in terms of, having a ton of good playables. So, we'll see most of them in here as we go on, but yeah, we do actually have a couple of new people coming in too, so we're going to be changing the format a little bit for this as well. We're going to have a tournament style for this now, because as it turns out, the maintainer of the original mod that we have been working on actually was in contact with Peppa, for not just testing purposes, but getting some other confirmation stuff as well. And turns out he wanted to play alongside one of his friends, Leo, as well. So we have a couple new decks here as well to go over, which is good. They did their drafts separately to get their base and jungle stuff, and we're just kind of going with it from there. So yeah, I guess the first one to look over would actually be Matt's deck, because he pulled 3 Blastoise. Kind of insane. So, and also 4 Pokemon Breeder as well. So this is actually not too far off of what a quote-unquote traditional Blastoise deck would even look like, to be honest. You've got your 4-1-3 Blastoise with a 4 Breeder. That's kind of normal. There's no computer search and no item finder in his draft at the moment, which is a little concerning, and he doesn't play any plus power whatsoever in here. He only pulled 1, but has since traded for a couple of others, so that is definitely possible. But yeah, you've got your maxed out removal suite, which is kind of absurd. Blastoise makes super energy removal quite a decent card to run with, right? Lots of retrieval, the 2 Pokemon traders, so there's a reasonable chance of getting this set up. The 2 Lapras, because Articuno was not fully available, I imagine you would probably just play 3 Articuno instead of this Tentacruel lying down here. But, I mean, he might actually still play the Tentacruel because he found it was quite good against Mr. Mime. Because he played Kib, and apparently it did pretty well there. So I imagine this might actually see some play otherwise. Matt also has 4 Lass and 4 Wigglytuff too, so there's obviously the opportunity to change decks from here, but I mean, this is a pretty interesting, straightforward Blastoise build, right? Even with a 4 Gust of Wind here too, trying to pick off particular stuff. I don't know if it necessarily works that well in the face of Muck, and probably, I mean, I guess that's what this could be for. but like I don't know exactly how you beat Muck with this, other than like gust it and hope you can take it out. Um, you've just got to get the energy set first. And this might be a little bit weak to the Mew with the Devolution Spray, because that's the other thing I guess we need to talk as we go through, is that we actually have promo cards now as well. We'll get into that when we get to some of the other decks, because there's a couple to discuss from there. Leo has a bit of an awkward draft in comparison to some of us here, because he doesn't really have the energy removal, nor really the energy retrieval to work on. Has managed to trade for a couple of copies, but only pulled one of each, so it's been pretty rough. However, what Leo does have is like 4 Venusaur and 3 Alakazam. So he went with the Alakazam build, and it's an interesting one for sure. I'm not entirely sure if there's enough energy in here given the low like retrieval count, but what is it, like 13 energy with 2 searches? It's probably alright. I may just consider personally going with just a straight energy rather than the search if you do a mono type, but you know, it definitely still works. Last is just a problem, I suppose. But yeah, Alakazam is kind of insane if you've never actually seen this card played. It is just capable of switching any damage that you have to any other spot on your board. So you put all of your damage onto stuff that isn't active and also stuff that doesn't have energy. So Pokemon Center, which he does have 4 copies of, is only playing 2 in here. You just remove all the damage, like constantly, and it's pretty absurd, to be honest. If Alakazam gets set up, it is very difficult to break through. So absolutely awesome to see it if you can get it set. The problem is Abra only has 30 HP, so it's very vulnerable to getting sniped early on. Like a plus power jab from Hitmonchan just takes it out in 1 hit, and you know, even at Kadabra at 60 HP, it's also 3 energy retreat cost. So very, very hard to get out. I see this list also doesn't play, I mean it does play the switch here, so you've got ways of getting out, but or getting out the active, but it's still like, it's difficult, right? I see this list isn't playing any of the big colorless Pokemon that you would normally play with this. Leo has 2 Chansey, so I'm not entirely sure why that's not in here. But, I mean, Mr. Mime is pretty good as well, right? The idea is that Mime can only take 20 damage per turn, Alakazam can just shift that off easily, and then you just never die, right? That's hoping the opponent doesn't have Gust of Wind, that's hoping the opponent doesn't have Muck to disable the abilities, but, I mean, if they don't, then you're pretty well set. So, yeah, that's the idea, is just try and make sure you never die. I think there needs to be maybe a little bit more healing in here. Revive is an interesting option because this does actually give Abra back, and it would only put 1 damage counter on it too, which is quite nice. So I could see that. I mean, I definitely wouldn't mind trying Alakazam. I don't have quite the setup for it that Leo does. He has 2 Pokemon Breeder, 3 Alakazam, whereas I only have 2 Alakazam and no Pokemon Breeders, so I'm in a little bit of a tougher spot with it, but I think it would still work. I had a deck build that could maybe use it. And then we get on to some of the more interesting builds up here. So we need to talk a little bit about the promos. As we go on now, we are going to have each player get 1 copy of all the promo cards that come out after the set, but before the next one, right? We want to try and play this effectively at the end of each set before the next one would come out. And yeah, the easiest way of getting promo cards in, especially in the tourney sort of format, is just to allow 1 copy of all of them to be given. We can trade between each other, so we can try and pull the resources if we really want to. If people just don't rate a certain promo and somebody else likes it and they can use it, we might be able to get some trades going. What this does mean, though, is we actually have access to this Mewtwo here, which is from the first movie, so you can see the stamp up the top, and this thing is really cool. So this kind of defined the fossil era, and normally we would have a lot more of it, but even at just 1 copy, this card is kind of insane. So energy removal has been one of the biggest problems that we've had as far as the first like 2 or 3 sets have gone. and just keeping energy in play and trying to work around it is a bit of a hassle. Energy absorption lets you get stuff back onto the Mewtwo. So if you play enough energy down, this thing can let you, like discard for the computer search or Professor Oak and discard a bunch of Psychic and then just take those Psychic energies back for next turn. And Psyburn is a big hit too, like 40 damage is not to be underestimated. It's not good against the colorless stuff, but it hits like everything else for solid damage. So definitely keep an eye on this Mewtwo, it is going to be insane. I don't know why the cards keep like flying up and down here. This section's always a bit weird. Doesn't matter. Point is, this card is good, and as we see in Psychotic's deck up here, it's definitely using the Psychic part of it to its advantage. I'm interested on the choice of stuff here. So we have the side up. This is one of the best cards of the set in general, actually, because it works so well with the Mewtwo and the likes. Headache stops your opponent playing trainers next turn. Most of the decks in this format have got like 50% of the deck is trainers. This one is a lot less on that front. I think Sai's probably been a little bit more conservative based on this thing in general. But yeah, the idea, Sai wants to deck everybody out, right? This is a stall deck. There's no other way of putting it. We've got the Lickitung, which is the sleeper hit of the format. Never saw play when it was actually, just came out, but revisiting the format, this thing is an ass, and it's just like stupid strong. So there's that. You've got the Kangaskhan, is also 90 HP. This searches out stuff as you go. The Hypno is new in the Fossil set and can let you rearrange the top 3 cards of either player's deck. So you can actually see what the opponent's deck has left, or what they have coming up, and just try and slow the game down that way. So you got 2 big disruption tools here, and then you've got the Golduck, which doesn't really do a lot of damage, but if you can load enough water energy on it, Hyper Beam is the same as the Dragonairs. It discards energy from the opponent's active. So kind of crazy in a way. Doesn't really do much for free energy, like, and 2 of them being colored as well, and being a different color from the first attack. It's difficult to use and doesn't like do that much, but denying the opponent energy is really strong. It's curious then that there are no energy removal in this deck to sort of go with that, right? The other card to talk about in here is Ditto, which is again one of the other like strongest cards of Fossil. Ditto literally just copies all of the opposing Pokemon's traits, so if they are in with like a Charizard, then you've got a 120 HP Ditto that has energy burn to make all the stuff fire. I mean, its ability makes all the stuff fire anyway, but you've got the fire spin attack, you've got the the big HP, the big retreat cost, etc. Yeah, it's a crazy card. Ruling's Nightmare too, but since it copies powers, you could actually copy like Damage Swap or something like that for it. And double colorless energy ends up becoming a double rainbow energy whilst it's on the Ditto, which is it's just absurd. But yeah, this deck is just full of absolute chonkers with 3 copies of Mr. Fuji to shuffle stuff from the bench back into the deck, and 3 Pokemon Center to heal up. It doesn't have the damage swapping or energy transing shenanigans of Venusaur or Alakazam, but it has just such ridiculous HP that you need to hit really, really hard to get through this deck. And yeah, it's got Scoop Up too, didn't even mention that. So he never wants to actually take any prizes with this deck, he just wants to make everybody else miserable. That's pretty much it. Yeah, so, kind of a thing. So then we get to Kib's deck, and Kib has, I want to say a similar idea in some aspects, but isn't all in on it, and is a little bit more versatile in some ways. There's a lot of colorless attackers in here. There's more of the promo text, like we do see the Mewtwo. Mew is also one that we picked up in here. So Mew is mostly used as an out to Mewtwo. There's no plus power in this list, so it's not like the greatest out to it, but the idea is that a Mew with plus power would let you one-shot a Mewtwo that has set up to Cyburn, right, with free energy. So that's cool. Or if the opponent has to put a double colorless on it, then it one-shots it even without. So, and also Devolution Beam is kind of cool against a Pokemon Breeder style of deck, where if they don't have enough of the stage 1s, they just can't go through with it. Devolution Beam can technically let you, same as with stuff like Golurk does it in modern formats, it lets you devolve the opponent's Pokemon, KO them if they've got too much damage on them still, and then, you know, they've just lost the Pokemon. It's great. The other promo that he's using is this Jigglypuff. The Jigglypuff does allow some neat stuff here, like Double Edge is a pretty expensive attack, but 40 damage on the basic is not too bad, and it can heal itself too. If the opponent's not able to do a lot of damage to you, this Jigglypuff's healing can be quite nice. Personally, I still prefer this one for the Lullaby, because that can sometimes buy you turns, and Pound is a little bit better against Mr. Mime than the other one, but you know, it works out just as well. I think it's a decent one to try out, if nothing else. So yeah, Kib's also on the Hypno. Kib has one Chansey, so that's a big difference from some of the other stuff we've seen here. This thing is a menace to society. I wish I had one myself. But otherwise, it's a potpourri of a lot of different psychic and colorless attackers here, with the Wigglytuff, one copy that Kib has, being the standout sort of finisher one here. Yeah, otherwise, it's pretty respectable. There's a couple of interesting choices in here. Gambler is neat because it can, if you just don't play a lot of cards in your hand, you can avoid deck outs with this. So it's a decent tech against these stall decks. So could be worth considering. Recycle is also an interesting one that we just don't see very often because it's on the coin toss. But getting any card from your discard pile back on top of the deck is pretty good. There's a promo Dragonite that we got as well with this set that lets you draw a card and put a card from your hand back on top of the deck. So Recycle could actually work with that. I think it's like Oranguru nowadays kind of does that. Yeah, it could actually let you shuffle some stuff up, which is quite nice. And then we get to Peppa's deck here, which is a bit of an amalgamation of a bunch of stuff here. It's mostly trying to be a bit anti-meta, as we'll see with my deck down the bottom. I'm doing a similar sort of thing here. Except, yeah, Peppa's actually got 2 Wigglytuff, one of which because of me. It is what it is. I only had the 1, so it was like, okay, I need Kangaskhan. I had 0 of that, so I guess we traded that away. But yeah, it's kind of Wigglytuff. He's playing 4 Jigglypuff, which, you know, might seem excessive. Wigglytuff does need a bunch of bench stuff, though. I probably still would rather see like a Sandshrew or something in here personally instead of it, if you're going to run that sort of line. But, you know, Jigglypuff is kind of big. It's good against the psychic stuff. It's probably where the bets are being hedged. For Cypher, it's managing to trade for 4 of these. I don't think... I don't remember. I think Peppa might have been the one that had 3, and then I traded the spare one. But yeah, Cypher is obviously still really strong. Its Swords Dance potentially is okay. Slash for 30 though is really where it's at. 0 Retreat, Fire Weakness is not too big of a deal, and Fighting Resistance is pretty good if you are trying to hedge against these colorless types, which is what he's doing with the Sandslash over here. Sandslash is flippy, but relatively cheap to attack with and can do up to 60 damage, so it's quite nice. Resisting Lightning is also decent too, although not really that important for this deck because there's no like Dodrio or anything in here, but it's still pretty strong. And then rounding stuff out is the psychic stuff here with the Mewtwo, of course, and the Mr. Mime. This Mewtwo is a lot fuzzier because it's one that I imported from Pallet Town stuff. Don't do that. It's not as good. There's a way of getting the cards from a different mod to sort of import into here, and this also caused issues with seeing like the promos with different back and stuff in hand. It was a bad time. Don't do it. Yeah, he's got 2 last too, which is pretty debilitating. There's kind of a lot of everything in here and not a lot of like consistency within it, but when you don't have Trader, you don't have Comp Search, you don't have Item Finder, you kind of gotta build in a slightly different way. And yeah, probably the biggest potential issue here is just the lack of energy. There are 13 total energy between 5 different types, and only 2 energy retrieval. Like 4, double colors plus 4 actual colors here. And, I mean, that seems like a little bit of a stretch, but the grass you kind of don't need. It's mostly just you've got 4 energy surge, so Cypher might get to Swords Dance with it, I guess. And I think the water he was saying was just in case Fury Swipes came in against the fire types. Like Magmar is pretty good in this set, so I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of like trying to do a bit of everything. There's absolutely no recovery in here whatsoever, so I think it gets trashed by stall, but that just depends on what you get set against, I suppose. Anyway, last deck is mine, the one that I actually played in, which I was kind of hedging against a few things as well, but this was mostly for using Muck. I was the only one who actually used it in this one, probably because it wasn't very available in the lists. I still pulled 3 of it though, so yay for me. But yeah, it probably just wasn't available enough. But yeah, I was kind of hedging against a bunch of stuff too, so I traded for a second Dugtrio, and I initially had Sandslash, but Dugtrio really hits hard. Right, if you don't just get energy removed constantly with it, this thing can hit 40 damage on resistant Pokemon, and it's just absurd overall. This will, with a plus power, one-shot Alakazam, which was one of the sort of worries I had knowing that Leo had access to that. This one-shots all of the colorless Pokemon, most of them with a plus power and just slash, so that's where the free plus power come in here. And Muck just denies like all of the ability stuff, right? It ignores all other Pokemon powers, except itself. There is a difference, so I should probably mention it. Its attack is not anything that we could use, but it's mostly there to just sit on the bench and just stop the opponent doing anything, basically. So initially it was the Dugtrio with the Mewtwo. The Mewtwo really made this deck come together because the energy absorption is just so strong. It can just outpace like everything that isn't psychic resistant, and all the psychic resistant stuff is pretty much weak to ground, or the fighting. So we have that. We also have the one Machop. I had 2, but then I kind of figured, well, my Blastoise matchup might not actually be that impressive here. Also, Dodrio is something as well that people were testing with. So, Electabuzz kind of comes in as the last one. I have 3 copies of this thing. So, with Energy Search letting me play, 3 different colors of energy in here, I've gone all in on the energy stuff here, right? 17 energy with 2 search and 3 retrieval. I want to just be able to attack like every turn, pretty much, and also have enough to charge up these hefty attacks up here too. So yeah, Electabuzz is just another really solid attacker to go in with that. Fighting resistance stuff, fighting like weakness here is not really too big of a deal. Yeah, I've only got the Cypher, like 1 of as a resistance for it, but honestly, it's not that big of a problem. And then the one Lickitung in here is mostly just as an out to the psychic stuff. Kangaskhan could maybe work, but I don't have double colorless for it. Snorlax definitely doesn't work in here, and like Taurus is okay. I don't think Taurus does enough without having instant access to double colorless. Double colorless just doesn't function very well in this deck because we've got only 1 colorless on like all of my attack costs other than Cypher, so doesn't really figure. And the 1 grass energy just wouldn't make enough of a difference. I mean, maybe you could argue it, but I think I need the energy counts where they are just to make sure that I don't prize too many of them, especially because Mewtwo is a heavy attack cost for it. I think Peppa's deck is excessively greedy when it comes to that, because, like, again, only 2 energy retrieval too. Yeah, the 4 energy search lets you get it out, but as soon as it gets energy removed, you're kind of screwed. Like, 3 energy, if one of these gets prized, you can't sideburn, basically, which is a huge problem. So, yeah, I think 4, even with only Mewtwo needing Psychic, I think 4 is kind of the minimum that you'd want, really. So, yeah, that was pretty much the decks everybody played, and I wouldn't expect all of these to stick. I think Matt is probably going to stick with the Blastoise, just having more Articuno available, hopefully. Leo, I have no idea. I imagine Alakazam is probably just one he wants to play, so, you know, we'll have to see on that one. Maybe the Chansey can come in, though, because that card is real good. And then, as for the others, I have no idea. I think Sai is going to play something completely different. We have been talking about Dragonite stuff. I don't know if he's going to stick with it, but he really wants to play it, so I imagine that's probably going to be in. Still going to be Stole, though, because, you know, whatever, right? And then myself, I don't know. I kind of wanted to play Alakazam, but seeing all of the ability stuff going on here, Muck honestly seems like it's got to be the play. So I need to find something that works with that, more or less. And I don't have Wigglytuff to run with, so we'll just have to see. Anyway, apologies for this not being the next actual part, but yeah, mistakes happen. Draft stuff just wasn't really usable, so we will go ahead and leave it at that. Hopefully next week there won't be any issues and we can just go in with the next round. So yeah, till then, take care.